Defined content. This is Kristocentric Station, playing at kristocentric.com. Kristocentric Station, the Kingdom Promoter.
Well, it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. Whatever's in store for me, it's gonna be nice. It's crazy right now, Lord, but that's when you shine. I can't start shouting, knowing it's gonna be nice. Well, you never promised me that my days would be problem-free, but you did promise to always take care of me. Right now it seems that my troubles will never end. I know you promised to be my closest friend, and it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. Whatever you got in store for me, Lord, it's gonna be nice. It's crazy. It's crazy right now, Lord, but that's when you shine. I can't start shouting. It's gonna be nice. Well, I gotta remind myself daily who lives inside of me. And when I stay close to me, you're gonna be no more crying about my situation. I know what I gotta do. I gotta pray, gotta trust, gotta believe. Depend on you. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. Whatever you got for me, it's gonna be nice. It seems crazy right now. It's crazy right now. But I know you shine in the midst of it. Lord, I can't start shouting. I'm gonna shout right now. It's gonna be nice.
Awesome. You know, that song, it always throws me off because then I start dancing in studio and forget that I'm here for serious work. Good evening, and you're welcome to the Life and Grace show with Karis and Eva. It's so good to be in the studio again. Eva, are you around?
I am here, Karis.
Awesome. Well, you sound like you have a lot of energy in your voice. How's your week been so far?
Well, I'm amazed I have any energy left today. We went on a 3 hour, almost 4 hour walk and,
Okay.
stayed out of the house from about 12 till evening with the children. Came back, and of all the meals I could cook, I chose to do a roast dinner, lamb roast. And it comes with so many condiments. And I've jumped onto that right after eating that big meal. So, right.
What a full day. You're very ambitious, but I'm happy to hear that. I wish I were there. I would have tasted your food.
Oh, yes. You'd have loved it, Karis.
Awesome, awesome. Well, today in studio, we are not alone. Normally we just chit chat, you and I, but today we have a wonderful guest with us. And for those of you who are tuning in, going online, all the other channels that you are catching on with the Life and Grace show on Kristocentric Station, we have with us in the studio Mr. Kweku EDEM DAMANKA. I'm going to give you a long list, then I'll summarize it for you. Now, Mr. Kweku EDEM DAMANKA is a professional HR practitioner. He's the group head of talent, which is HR and corporate affairs for BTL Africa. He's a founder and president of Dreams Africa. He's previously a CEO of the HUD Group Ghana. He's a husband of one queen and a father of royalty. And he's my friend and brother. Edem, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Karis and Eva. Yeah, happy to be here with you this evening. I've been hearing a lot about grace and life and grace, and I've been looking up to a conversation with you. So, yes, I'm happy to be here, and good evening to all our listeners as well.
Awesome.
Wherever you are, good day, actually.
Great. Edem, how's your week been? Any fires you've put off in the corporate world? Anything exciting happening with you?
Fires, yes, there's been. One started with a Monday morning.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, but obviously that's what we are called to do.
Okay.
I remember one of my lecturers back in uni says that as an HR practitioner, you have to have a cool head and a warm heart. So yeah, you have to deal with the human situations every single day. Human beings are complex,
Very.
and in the work setting, it's always like that. But yes, that always triumphs as well. And yes, so it's been a good week to begin with. For the past 3 days, we've been in training as well
Okay.
for our staff across the business. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So today we invited Edem in because we want to deal with a very interesting topic. It's called navigating corporate politics. So you're tuning in. Today we're talking about navigating corporate politics. And when I was thinking about it today, some very funny thoughts came to mind. So wherever there are institutions, where there's an agenda, a goal, or purpose, where there are human beings and there's an interaction of all these inputs, there will surely be politics. Yes, and when you're citing it, put KSA 2023. No, you have an institution, you have a structure. And in that structure, you have a goal or a purpose, an aim, a product you're trying to come up with. And then you have human beings. And then these all interact. There will be some form of politics. So, as our expert, our resident expert, I guess my first question to you would be, what exactly is corporate politics?
Yeah, thank you, Karis, and I'm glad we're having this conversation today. Corporate politics. I think we first want to situate it in the world of work.
Okay.
And it could be different places people work at. It could be corporate, it could be in academia, it could be wherever you're working. I mean, there's always that level of interaction. I remember when we were in uni again, one of my lecturers said that even in the bedroom, there's politics.
Ooh, interesting.
At home, there will always be politics. So yes, organizational politics, office politics, corporate politics is basically about the informal ways within the workplace and written rules by which people try to gain power,
Okay.
or gain influence, or gain resources. Just like you said, there are resources that people are all trying to have a bite of.
Okay.
Even in the workplace. I mean, look at the different departments within the workplace. There's only one resource. Everybody's trying to have a bit of that resource to be able to execute whatever task or project that is assigned to them, in the interest of the organization eventually, right? Yeah, so that informal way and written rules or, ways by which people just try to get that power, that influence or that resource to get things done within the business. Sometimes for their own gain or personal interest and at the expense of others. But yes, politics generally, I've come to understand, is neutral. If we want to extend the conversation, sometimes people think that politics is a bad word or a dirty word. Politics is not bad, it's not dirty. It's the players sometimes that make it dirty.
Okay.
Because yes, politics is how resources are allocated and used, when and how, to who. All right. So obviously, yes, there will always be that group of people who want to be greedy about it, but there are people who are also genuinely good and who would want to use it for the good of the company in which they are in. So yes, first and foremost, I think what I want to put out there is that let's rethink the word politics. It's not a bad thing. It's not a dirty, especially for the Christian community. It's people who have made it bad and dirty. And even those who have made it bad and dirty, they are not called politicians. Okay. They are called politicasters.
Interesting. Yeah. So can you differentiate between politician and politicasters? Interesting.
Yeah, so the politician basically really by way of meaning are supposed to be people who are using the national resources for the development of the nation, right? They interacting with politics, with the people, with communities, and the resources of the nation or the community in which they are using them judiciously to develop the people and to be able to rule the people. Okay. But politicasters are the people who want to use power for their selfish interest, right? So rightly so, I mean, if people are doing the wrong things and they are in politics, we should be calling them politicasters. But we kind of, put everybody together and we say politicians are bad and politicians are not good, but that's not it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So today, in case you're listening to us on the Life and Grace show, we are taking back the word politics and politicians to show that there's nothing wrong with that in its sense. It's almost like it's a science, it's a humanity, it's a way of doing things in a very defined way. But it's those who take advantage of the system or of people's lack of knowledge. Those are the politicasters. Let's go back to the corporate world. When you were giving your definition, I'm going to be pulling Eva in for her first question in a few seconds. When you were giving your definition of politics, you made a statement which I won't say it made me faint, but I can see the cracks of the matter for me. Unwritten rules. Why can't they just be written and then we read the paper, and when we start work from day one, we know that this and this and this is what's expected of me? It just stresses our lives. Why do we have to have these unwritten rules?
They're unwritten, and I like the fact that you said it is complex. I mean, human beings are complex in nature, so it's not everything that is written out. People have individual beliefs. Okay. Human beings are not naturally just rational and logical. We're emotional beings as well.
Okay.
And we have our own beliefs, we have our own attitude at work, we have our own values that we bring into the workplace, right? And so all of these somehow in our interactions as human beings play out. You know, people have favorites. You can't stop them from having favorites.
Okay.
The people who have likes and dislikes, you can't stop them from having those likes and dislikes. But generally, that's why we have what we call the policies. The policies are to regulate that in the workplace.
Okay.
So we have organizational policies, or maybe you go to a workplace, you have a handbook, which is supposed to guide the behavior,
yes,
and to guide the attitude and performance of people in the workplace. In the absence of that, really, you can just imagine what would happen in the workplace.
It'll be even worse, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the whole idea is to some extent control those behaviors, but I can't control it totally.
Okay.
Human beings will always try to find ways to still have things done the way they want to. You know, that's where again HR comes in. So how does HR comes in? So when people are going the wrong way, you want to make sure that punitive actions are taken within the scope of the labor law, and then those who are doing right, you want to reward them as well. Yes, so yes, it's unwritten because we are human beings.
That's my major point, and we'll get back to that. But Eva, I want to pull you into the conversation. You know, we came up with this topic a couple of weeks ago because of our personal experiences and some of the things we had gone through in different workplaces. So I want to pull you in your experience of corporate politics and any questions you have, of course, for our guest.
I wouldn't know where to start, Karis. But one of the things I'll definitely say is I walked into the workplace, especially here in the UK, very naive, you know, believing everyone likes you, everyone is out for the greater good, and so on. But I've been stung in so many ways, and I'll need more than 3 hours to get to work. But I do need. I want to ask Adam a question. So, would you say that depending on certain industries have certain levels of politicians and policasters, and you know, do you find in your practice that certain kinds of industries are more political in nature, or the atmosphere or surroundings, you know, the workplaces differs from sector or industry to industry?
Yeah, and I like the way you put it. So yes, there are levels of it in different organizations, and truthfully, the companies that do very well try as much as possible to minimize it, especially the unhealthy ones, you know. And so yes, depending on the kind of organization, especially larger organizations have a lot of it, you know, because there are different interest comes in then, you know, and different stakeholders. So all of it centers back to interest. Promotions, what kind of projects should I be assigned on, salary raise, you know, how am I outdoing my colleague or other teams? So especially where there's high competition, you're likely to see high level of politics within those workplaces. So yeah, first and foremost, it has to do with the size of the organization. Secondly, it will have to do with the values of the organizations. How well are they regulated? Because then if you're not regulating it too well, then it becomes so complex in the space and becomes unhealthy some of the times. Then again, you want to talk about the level of competition within the organization itself. Are people put in teams to compete against each other? Some businesses are deliberate about that. They want people to compete for resources, right? But some people are also trying as much as possible to have a healthy workplace where there's competition, all right, but it's a healthy competition. So you don't have to necessarily try to hurt your colleague or to outdo your colleague in a negative way to be able to win. Yes, so yes, it depends on the kind of organization in which you are in. And then I think when I put it out there, think about, I was just teasing my audience at a point, and a colleague was telling me that in North America, where he is, that's least politics in the workplace. He was telling me that it's simply because people are really content, and complacent. They don't have so much ambitions. I mean, they're fine with, I don't know how I can verify that. He was telling me his experience. We always say that you can have an opinion, but you can't challenge people's experiences because he has experienced that. So he was telling me from his point of experience that where he worked, you don't really have much of that in there. People come in and they just want to work. They do their work and they go. Right. So I was asking him, okay, so what happens to growth and expansion within the business? Because every business will be aspiring for more resources, revenue, profitability, they are expanding and all of that. And when that happens, what it means is that you want to promote people from one level to another, recruiting new people in. And if you expand from Ghana, probably from Ghana to Zambia, you want to recruit people in that place. There are people who are already with you, long-serving people. You want to take them to those places. Who should go? Who shouldn't go? So allocation of all of those resources, sending people around, transfers, all of them becomes a conversation point. But he said that, so largely that is left to the management. And I said, okay, but doesn't management think about succession planning and retirement? Because obviously at a point, somebody's going to retire and somebody has to take over. All of it comes back to politics. There's a bit of it in there. You can't take it out. Right.
I like that because when you started talking about things like promotion, salary, put on project, that document we talked about, the staff manual, code of conduct, policies, they kind of regulate that. But now you're talking about growth and expansion, and you're talking about the fact that there's a little bit of politics. Now, let's assume that I am that naive green person who's just finished, I won't even say national service, because the politicking starts at national service level. I've just finished my undergrad degree, and I'm going into this company, and it has branches in different countries. There's room for growth for me. How will I, as a young gentleman or a young lady, step into that, avoid landmines, and yet position myself so that when there's an opportunity, I will be considered for it? Let's take the context of Africa and Ghana. One of the major things that is a bane to young people is whether you're a very good-looking young man like Chris, who's standing in front of me, or you're a beautiful young lady like I was 10 years ago. Now I'm a beautiful older lady. And you're entering into this marketplace. There's a risk of even sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And they'll call it playing the game because you want to politic so that you get positioned to get that opportunity. How, as a Christian, will you position yourself and do the right things and get noticed in the right way and also get to the level that you can potentially go to?
Yeah. Amazing question. And I like the fact that even when Eva started, she said that when she went into her workplace there, she was naive.
Yeah.
And usually it's the new entrants or the newcomers into the workplace who happen to find themselves in that space of naivety or naivete, however you want to look at it. And again, another group of people who I've observed over the period, and I'm passionate about this thing because it's the Christians. We Christians, we have high morals, which is good and the foundation for great influence. But we don't understand that there are a lot of other things out there in the workplace that we are going into. And we're expecting things to be as good as possible. I'm just going to be a good person, do my work well, behave right, and nothing comes at me. But truthfully, I mean, the Bible makes us understand these things. So I was looking into the Bible deeply, and Jesus said that, yeah, you are in the world but not of the world. Basically, he's trying to say that, or he's saying that, yes, Satan doesn't have control over us, sin doesn't have dominion over us, but we are in the world. The world is where we are. Our work is in the world. And Paul said something about the world that brought it home for me, that at the end of the day, we have to prepare ourselves for things like this. When you read 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3 to 6, let me read actually, Message Bible, Paul says that the world is unprincipled. It is dog eat dog out there. The world doesn't fight fair, but we don't live or fight our battles that way. Never have and never will. The tools of our trades aren't for marketing and manipulation, but they are for demolishing the entire massively corrupt culture. We use our powerful God tools for smashing warped philosophies, tearing down barriers erected against the truth of God, fitting every loose thought and emotions and impulses into the structure of life shaped by Christ. Now, listen to the words Paul is using. First, he says that the world is unprincipled. That's what it is. There's politics in there, dirty politics in there, right? And then he's talking about the fact that, but we are going there trying to fight against some philosophies. The dirty politics is shaped by philosophies people have held on to, of have read, have taken into Machiavellian tactics and all of it, So they come into the workplace with those tactics, trying to see how they're going to win. Then he goes on to say that, but we are going to work against these thoughts and these emotions. I've told you, human beings come to the workplace with lots of emotions and different ideas and thoughts. So Paul is telling us this thing is there. Now, Jesus also says that I'm sending you out into the world, right? But be as what? Innocent as the dove, but then as wise as the serpent. Other scripture says as shrewd. What it means is being savvy. So at the center of all this we're talking about is being politically savvy, because you don't want to play dirty. But then how are you going to make sure that in playing with integrity, in playing with sincerity, you are still surviving and thriving within the workplace, right? So yes, for a young person who is just entering the space, you need to understand that there are different interests in the workplace.
Okay.
The fact that you are good, you think right, you think righteous, you just have a good heart and good behavior and you want to come and work, doesn't mean that everybody in the workplace has that kind of thinking.
Okay.
Secondly, you need to understand that there are competitions. People want to outdo each other. People want power. And power in the workplace come through different forms. Right, just like you were talking about, some people use positional power to bully people. If they were in a higher position of authority, then they may want to take advantage of people, which is wrong. And actually, when you mentioned sexual harassment, I was going to talk about it. For that particular one, it is criminal. Yeah. And I know most countries, it should be a standard practice. Sexual harassment, it's a criminal case. So if you find yourself in those situations, you want to report. But then obviously, yes, there are people I know, cases of there was a time I was talking to one young lady who wants to move from the banking sector into our sector. Basically, we're interviewing. And so I asked how she handles, what's her thought on organizational politics. Then she brought us out that there are times your bosses rightly place an account in your hand, which you're supposed to manage, like, the account managers, client service and all of that. So these are premium accounts they are supposed to manage. But then the person who has that huge amount of money in the bank has interest in you. Yeah. Some of them are married, and the business expects that you keep that client, keep the client happy. Whatever they mean by that sometimes means promiscuous ways of keeping the client. So she was saying that there are situations like that, and if you're not giving in, then they are likely to speak to your managers to take you off their account.
It's a very tough one.
And these are realities in the workplace. There are people going through so many things in the workplace, unspoken, they're silent about it. But yes, it's happening. So yes, for a young person entering this space, you need to know, you can't be naive. You need to know that these things are there. Yes, by all means be ethical, by all means be excellent at your work, by all means keep your integrity in place, but don't be naive. Don't be unawares. That's what I want to emphasize. You need to be aware that the space in which you are in, things like this happen.
Okay, so that's been said. I mean, you've explained that if it is sexual harassment or any kind of violence on the person, that one can be reported. So if you're listening to us or you're watching us today and you're going through something that has to do with sexual harassment, people are being violent towards you, or they've taken videos and now they're using it to manipulate you or try and get you to do something you don't want to, that is a criminal offense. And as a believer, we're going to keep talking about, yes, work is important and having a livelihood is critical, but more important is your soul. Therefore, don't feel that this is your last job and it took you 2 years to get this job. You can move and start something different. You can start be an entrepreneur. I mean, that's a different talk. We'll get to that one. So we're in that extreme. Please move. Please report. Please follow the procedure. But with regards to just dealing with these people who love power, who want to control and manipulate and make sure that at the end of the day, maybe it might be a lack of self-esteem. I want to be seen as the managers whose team does the best and everybody else's team is terrible. Or I want to be the one who has the ear of the CEO or the global CEO or the GM. And so I move things around so that I have that influence. Or there's another one that I've seen. Yes, I have a boss, but I want to seem like I am the one who's in the know. So when things happen and I have information, instead of being absolutely honest with my boss and telling my boss so that it will be reported according to line managers, I skip all of those people and then I go and whisper so I can take the credit. These are things that are happening in the workplace. Back to this young Christian or even seasoned Christian, how do we work with such things limiting our lives?
Okay, so like I mentioned, the first thing we need to come to terms with is that there's politics in the workplace.
Okay.
There are people who want to live in denials. It's like, oh, there's no politics. And then there are people who say politics is just dirty, so I don't want to play. And I don't want to have anything to do with it, which is true. You don't want to have anything to do with it, but it will come to you. Because a colleague is going to sabotage you, or a boss is going to come at you, or a client or a customer is going to complain about you for all mysterious reasons, which is not true. Yes, largely would have said, oh, don't worry, God will fight for you. But sometimes God expects us to use wisdom to be able to survive the spaces He's placed us. Because ultimately He places us at places because He has a purpose for us. And the purpose for us to fulfill requires that we use the wisdom of God. And I always say that there's the manifold wisdom of God, many-sided wisdom of God, which is required for us to be able to navigate these spaces. So yes, sometimes we overly focus on the intellectual intelligence. But you need social intelligence. You need what we talked about. You need political intelligence, right? You need emotional intelligence, So all of these are required skills for you to be able to navigate the world of work, right? So you don't have to forget about the need for these skills. Let me bring it home for you. I mean, at the center of all this we're talking about is favor, right?
Yes.
Now, Bible said that Jesus grew in what? Favor with what? God
and man
and human beings. So you need to want to have favor with human beings. So it's not wrong for people to want to have favor with human beings, right? I need to set that tone right. Then again, he said about Samuel. He says Samuel grew in stature and in wisdom, and he found favor before God and man. Again, there you find it. And the world of work for us Christians is what we would often refer to as Babylon. I've heard a lot of people refer to the secular world, the secular space of work as Babylon, and Babylon things that are happening in there, all kinds of things. And a clear example in Bible, and that's my go-to place most of the time, is Daniel. Daniel was in Babylon, so Daniel was in a secular world. It will interest you to know, and I was telling somebody that Daniel actually worked with unbelievers, right? They were in a country that was not their country. So it's like a church girl or a church boy who would have gone to church, which is a safe space, assumed to be a safe space, because even the politics happen, who is in a safe space. So there's a cocoon. You are from a Christian home, you know the do's and don'ts and all of that. Then all of a sudden you are thrown into the world like Daniel and his friends, which is Babylon. You are meeting unbelievers who have different values, who have different beliefs, who have different attitude, different interest. So this case you're using, let's use Daniel. So Daniel goes into that space. And when you listen to the story of Daniel, one key thing you keep hearing is that Daniel found favor with the eunuch or the officials or the supervisor. Daniel found favor with the king. Look at Esther. What was it? Esther found favor with the king. Look at Joseph. Joseph found favor with the king. Joseph found favor in Potiphar's house. All of them survived, and all of these people I've mentioned were in places outside their comfort zone. They were not in Christian zone. They were not in the temple. They were not in Christian homes. They were in a foreign land where unbelievers were, right? The same Nehemiah. Nehemiah was also, so all these people. So that is our context, really. Let's look at it that way. So all of us are in a space which is not as a sanctified space, right? But we're supposed to survive. But you need favor before God and favor before men to be able to survive this. And favor, we're basically talking about the spirit of acceptability, right? Or having approval from people, or being able to have access to the ears and the hearts of people. The only problem for which we are having this conversation about the negative side of it is that there are people who use negative ways and means to gain this favor.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Right? So what should you do as a Christian, as a believer, as a young person? And you also need to work out to have favor with people. But how do you do it? I'm sure that's what you want us to talk about.
That's what we want to talk about. You're listening to the Life and Grace show on Kristocentric station. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we continue talking to Bishop Blanco. Oh, you didn't know that was one of his titles. Let's take this break. We want to listen to this song by Samsung, Maximum Enjoyment. Work can actually be fun. Enjoy this. We'll be back.
Okay. He's a church boy, Samsung. DJ Half-Ray. Minimum effort. Maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. Minimum effort. Maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. Minimum effort. Maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. Minimum effort. Maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. Celebrate grace, so that your life no go see this grace. You be minister of labor, and me be minister of favor. Favor ain't fair. Labor man go to work, favor man go to church. Labor man go to hustle, favor man go to bubble. Your 10 years of labor equal to my 1 day of favor. Labor man they partner with man, favor man they partner with God. If you want join me, come close. Let me tell you what to do. Move on to the righteous side. The righteous side is the favor side. Move on to the righteous side. The righteous side is the favor side. Move on to the righteous side. The righteous side is the favor side. Move on to the righteous side. You get to the point now. Minimum effort, maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. Minimum effort, maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. Minimum effort, maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. Minimum effort, maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. I started life in a face me, I face you. I couldn't even afford a plate of food. I had to work all day, collect peanuts. Favor came suddenly, my life speak up. Now I do dinner with the presidents. I'm the owner of a $1 billion residence. Hanging with the big boys, big toys. All because I'm a son of a big God. Labor man, a partner with man. Favor man, a partner with God. If you want join me, come close. Let me tell you what to do. Move on to the righteous side. The righteous side is the favor side. Move on to the righteous side. The righteous side is the favor side. Move on to the righteous side. The righteous Minimum effort, maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. Minimum effort, maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. Minimum effort, maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. Minimum effort, maximum enjoyment. 9 be my portion. In the name of Jesus. All of my man them say. All of my man them say. All of my man them say. Swing. Minimum effort, maximum enjoyment.
The
9 be my
song.
portion.
If I send it to my church, they will pull apart the words and say, how theologically sound is it? Minimal effort, maximum enjoyment. But I know that our brother Adam will talk a little bit about it. I think what I love about the song, really I do, by some song is the idea that favor makes a difference. And I think that's the major point. Of course, we are called to put in our all. Yeah, so we'll get to that. But Eva, would you like to pick up from there?
I have to say, I do love that song. When we won that, put in minimum effort and get a lot more out of work.
Very low.
But even more so,
Eva, we can't hear you. Have you touched something?
one of the things I want to ask Ellen is,
We still can't hear you.
as I describe myself, and I was like this for quite a long time. Naive,
Now
thinking
we
good
can.
of others, so focused on doing your work and going home to be with your family, and you expect everyone to do the same. How do you recognize the signs of an impending political agenda so that you can be able to somewhat approach it with the wisdom you've been sharing with us?
Okay. If I understood you, you were asking how do you perceive the political agenda within the workspace and how do you try to navigate that? Is that the case?
Yeah.
All right, sure. So I think one of the first things you need to do when you get to the workplace, wherever you are, you want to find out who the political players are. And that has to do with you being very observant. It's simply a skill of being observant. All of us, when we go to school, uni, tertiary, even college, you're taught somehow to learn to do observation. You gather data by observation. Right? So, yes, you want to be very attentive, pay attention to the political landscape. Who are the players within the space? What is the hierarchy? Who are the people who are using information power? The people who are very knowledgeable in the space. And sometimes when you get to the workplace, they are the first people who want to approach you. And they want to tell you everything within the space, like the bad things about the space, the good things about the space. You don't have to be naive to swallow everything that you're being told. But yes, you want to find out who are the oldies in the space, those who have been there for so long. They are people who knows about everybody, who knows about everything, and they want to tell you a bit of everything. There are gossips also, and you don't want to be found in the company of gossips, because otherwise then sometimes you become accomplice as well. So the point is that you want to find out the right source of information, where you can get information. Most companies, very good companies, when you enter that workspace, what they will give you is the person we call buddy. So during your orientation period or induction, there's a buddy that is assigned to you who is helping you to navigate the new work environment, because the new culture you're going into, so you want to understand what the workplace is all about, what are the things you need to look out for, the do's and don'ts. And if you have a good buddy, you're likely to be well informed and well positioned, so how to navigate the space, because yes, like you said from the beginning, you are there ultimately to work, right, to get your work done, to get the results. But then once you are aware that all other things are there in that space, Then you want to have that knowledge base so that you know how to navigate without offending people unnecessarily. That's actually what I'm trying to get to, because there are people who are there who are like the foxes in the workplace, and you don't want to go step on their toes needlessly, right? Because then you've set yourself up for a revenge and an enemy for the rest of your space or stay in that workspace. So you want to get those information. So yes, get somebody, a reliable source to gather information. Scan the space. Be very observant, right? Try to first and foremost get to know what the written rules are.
Okay.
Because again, if you don't know what the written rules are, somebody will misinform you. Right? So there are people out there whose agenda will be to misinform you and then put you in trouble, and then position themselves as the one who are coming to help you out of the trouble.
Oh my goodness.
And and then you become a prey to them as well. So yes, first and foremost, get the written rules. Maybe the HR is your go-to person. I wouldn't say all HRs are positive, but yes, majority of them are trained professionally to be good. You don't want to find yourself in the hands of a HR who would be rather the person who is manipulating you as well. So yes, as much as possible, try and get the right source of information, get the written rules, get to know about the policies within the workplace, the do's and don'ts, and then you want to find out from, if you are lucky to have a buddy, the history of the workplace, who are the power players within the workplace and how do they play it, because they'll caution you about how to handle yourself within that workspace. And then personally try to develop what we call your own influence, right? Try to develop your own influence. Means you need to learn the skills of persuasion, right? You need to learn the skills of active listening, all right? And then you want to network. So all these things I'm talking about basically are the component of someone who is being a politically savvy person, right? Or politically shrewd person, right? You have a network of people. You need to have somebody who is looking out for you within the workplace, wherever at the different strata of the organization, to the highest level, right? Kalahari's one of the Wall Street business people I love to listen to. She talks about the fact that in the corporate space, we have what we call the performance currency. Your performance, your work will be speaking for you, all right. But then you need to have the social currency. And the social currency has to do with your network of people. Who is watching out for you? Who is speaking for you? And I am privileged to be in executive committee of my organization. And truthfully, people's name always come up in those meetings. And the question is that when your name come up, what is being said about you and who is speaking for you?
Who's your sponsor?
Who's your sponsor, obviously? Yeah, so as much as you want to make sure that your work, which is your performance, is excellent and is working for you. And again, I will relate it back to Daniel. All right. So I was telling somebody that when we read the Daniel story, especially when you hear pastor preaching, would emphasize on how Daniel purposed in his heart not to defile himself with the king's meat. Right? And we are all charged up spiritually. Hey, yes, Daniel. So you go into the workplace, like Karis is saying, the typical workplace. You're a Christian, you have your values, you're not going to defile yourself, blah, 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 which is fine. Then Daniel, the first challenge he gets is that you are supposed to be fed with food sacrificed to the gods. And your value system says that, no, don't eat food sacrificed to the gods. Yours may be, like you were saying, yours may be somebody trying to sexually harass you. And you're a Christian, no fornication, no adultery and all of that. And you want to hold on to it. Yeah, right? So how are you going to navigate this space? Sometimes the people who are really harassing, they also have found tactful ways to get through to this so that it's not like they are harassing you, even though they are doing that. Right? They are coming at you in a way, in a subtle way, that you can't hold any case against them that they harassed you. Right? He's throwing baits at you to see if you will fall for it and if you are the one also interested. So if the case of sexual harassment comes up and we dig into it, probably the case will find out this was not harassment. It was a mutual consent. But maybe it was not really mutual consent. It was just your mind being played on and eventually find yourself. My point is, so let's take Daniel. Daniel finds himself in that situation. Now, Daniel, as much as he purposed in his heart, learned to do something which we are asking you to do here. Daniel had a network of people within that space, even though they were unbelievers, right? The immediate supervisor of Daniel and the one who supervised his supervisor, Daniel went straight to the person to have a conversation, to say, okay, I get this. This is the standard of the king of assessing us, for us to eat the food because he wants us to look good and all of that. And they think that these are the ways by which we can reach that goal. But I think that by my values and virtues, I am not able to do that. Can you grant me exemption? And that's another thing I'm going to talk about later on. I think Karis has once raised this conversation about exemptions at the workplace. Don't forget, at the core of exemption is what? Favor.
Favor.
Right? So Daniel goes to talk to his supervisor. And the supervisor says, no, I can't do that. My job will be on the line, because if the king, who is the leader, gets to know that I'm granting you this favor, he's going to take my job from me. Daniel didn't leave it there. Now, Daniel went to the next level, the one who has direct supervision for his work. And then he goes to talk to this person and says that, asking the same thing. Now the person says, hey, but if my next level, whom you went to, who denied you, hears of this thing that I'm doing for you, then I'm finished. And Daniel says, okay, I get you. But please, look at this idea. And that's where sometimes we fail. We want to stand our grounds, but we don't bring alternative to the conversation. But this was Daniel. Daniel says that, okay, how about we look at this situation you are proposing this way? He says, okay, feed us on this fruit or these vegetables for this number of weeks. So he was not just throwing the idea out there. He was very strategic about it. He put a timeline to it. He says, let's try it this way for 2 weeks. If it doesn't work, we'll revert to the one you want us to do, right? So that is about being brilliant in your submission, the ideation. First and foremost is the networking. So he was now trying to create a network, a relationship with the people who matter, who can help him not to compromise, right? So for you, who would that person be in the workplace? A trusted person that you can talk to say, this person is making moves at me. I don't want to compromise, but how will you advise me to handle this situation so that I don't, look bad and I don't become a victim and I also don't become an enemy, right? So there's a way to handle it. So you want to talk to that. So Daniel did that, and the Bible makes us understand that the supervisor granted him that. Right? So that's where the Bible says, and Daniel found favor before the officials, so they granted him that. That's the spirit of acceptance. It was networking, right? So when we get to the workplace, you need to try to find the network of people who have your interests at heart, who have wisdom to offer you, who can give you good counsel to know how to navigate the space, because they know something obviously that you don't know. It's the same case of Esther. When Esther was in Persia, wherever they were, there was the eunuch. So Mordecai told her that, go to that person. He will show you how to handle the case in that palace. So you always need that. It could be a mentor, it could be a sponsor, and it's littered throughout the scriptures. These things are there. When you look at Ruth, it was Naomi who shown her the way of the culture of the people and how you can navigate that space. So you want to find out someone who can help you to navigate that space.
You know what, Adam, as you're talking, one of the things that's coming out is you might be a young person and you might have gotten honors in your degree or first class upper. But as you are entering into a new environment, there is a level of humility that is required of you. Because I don't think Esther would have listened to Mordecai if she wasn't humble, or Ruth would have listened to Naomi, or Daniel would have known that even though I'm a spiritus, I am, and he was a prince from Jerusalem. He was a prince from his land, from Israel. He knew that he had to talk to the Enoch and show respect to that Enoch. And so I think that as young people, or young in that environment, you might have 20 years of experience somewhere else, but you're coming into a new space. There's some level of humility that is definitely required
very
of you.
Important. Very, very important.
Absolutely.
Very, very
Absolutely.
important. And then the second thing is that we need to understand that as much as we want to leverage on or moral principles, which is key. Like I've mentioned, it should be the foundation of every other thing you know. You need to understand that there are legal dimensions of things that happen within the workplace. There are social dimensions to it. And whenever I talk about this, I'm wondering what other people are thinking about it, because the message we have heard so many times is about how Jacob was the supplanter and how Jacob was the deceiver, right? But when you look at, and again, so that comes to organizational politics. You look at the story very well. The brother Esau came to Jacob. He says, I'm hungry. Give me food to eat. And I'm talking about this because the workplace, the corporate space, is a place of exchange. It's exchange happen, exchange of goods, exchange of ideas, exchange of resources, and all of that, right? So here was Esau and Jacob, and Esau comes to Jacob. He says, I want this resource. And then Jacob says, okay, I can trade it. I don't have a problem trading it. But what I'm trading this for is for your birthright.
All right.
And look at this conversation. It's a contract they are going into. This is a verbal, legal contract they are going into. And Esau says, oh, who cares? Birthright. What is it? Right? I don't care. So maybe yours may be sexual advances at the workplace. And somebody's coming at you and he says, give me sex for this. Right? And you may be saying, oh, what is sex? Really? It doesn't really matter. So long as I get what I want, right? It's fine. So maybe that's the situation in this case, right? So Esau goes ahead. He says, take it. I don't care. Give me food. And then he eats it. Then now it was time to take the inheritance of the birthright that he sold legally to Jacob. Now Jacob goes in there and find ways to take what he believes that is legally his. And then we are all focused just on the moral part of it and saying that, yeah, but you know, he's a brother, he shouldn't have taken his brother's birthright and all of that. But the guy says that you legally exchanged this thing for me.
For
right?
a bowl of
For
lentil soup.
And the interesting thing is what the Bible says God said about Esau. Like I said again, we like to bash Jacob and all of that, but God says Esau, who was godless and casual with the birthright inheritance, for a bowl of meal. So God was more particular even about the attitude of Esau in selling this thing to Jacob. What am I trying to talk about? The fact that beyond the moral, there are legal implications of things we do in the workplace, and you want to be vigilant about it so that you are not swayed and taken advantage of, only for you to realize that, this one I was played. But interesting thing is that it happened to Jacob too. So Jacob now goes to Laban. He's going to work for his uncle. And then he worked for 7 years and interested in marrying the daughter of the uncle. And then when he was done with the 7 years, the uncle says, in our culture, this is social contract.
Yep.
So he's saying by the contract of our society, of our community, the firstborn has to marry before the secondborn. I don't know how you miss that contract. I don't know how you miss reading that policy. I don't know how you miss that law. But legally, I can't give you the first one because by the communal law, you're supposed to be, the first has to marry. So if you are cool, I can marry the first one to you and then you work for me another 7 years. Many of us go into the workplace not understanding the contract we are reading, not understanding the document we are signing. And people, when they are in business, really, sometimes they can be so shrewd, right? And some are in all kinds manner of businesses, and they can use your name to sign up those businesses. They can use your face to front all of those things. So yes, it's important for you to also be vigilant about the document you are signing to, the contract you are agreeing to, which is actually one of the first things that happen to you when you get to the workplace as well, right?
So don't be so excited about the fact that you have a new job that when they give you the document, you don't actually read the fine detail. You just say, hey, finally, I have a job. Remember who your father is. He's God. If you go in and you read it and there's some segments or sections of the contract that, or there's something in your spirit. Let's get spiritual. We've been talking about political
Very
things. Let's get
important.
spiritual.
Very important.
There's something in your knower what they call
yeah.
your inner man that tells you, in as
Instincts.
much as everything looks good, there's something off here. Please ask for a few more days, 48 hours to read and get someone else who's good, who's an HR expert or a lawyer to
lawyer,
read
yeah,
over it
legal practitioner.
as well. And then you can make a decision. And if they advise you, don't feel that, oh, it took me 3 years to get this job, this is my last chance. No, be very, very wise about it.
Yeah.
We must be savvy. I really love what we've been chatting about. I cannot believe that the hour is almost up. I want us to answer one more question at least, and I would love Eva to also come in after this. You talked about social currency.
Yeah.
You talked about performance currency, which you have. It has to do with your skill, your performance, how you're doing very
knowledge
well,
work,
your knowledge. But social currency is one I'm curious about.
Yeah.
How can we develop greater social currency at our workplaces?
All right, sure. So I would say that to bring it to the context of the conversation we're having, so we're looking at being politically aware, being politically savvy. So we say that you need to have social currency. And I said that it goes all the way back to favor, right? And sometimes we over-spiritualize favor, really.
Okay.
But when you read the Bible, and I love us to read a few of these things, right? When you read Proverbs chapter 3, verse 3 to 4, it says that never let loyalty and kindness leave you. Tie them around your neck as a reminder. Write them deep within your heart. Then you will find favor with both God and people, and you will earn a good reputation. So how do you find favor? Here is telling you by loyalty and by kindness. There's a way you can be kind to people. There's a way you volunteer on projects of people. That's how you demonstrate loyalty. I remember one of the first ways I found one of my mentors, and Dr. Alpebi, I can talk about him, Heart Group, proudly associated with him, was I was serving within the Heart Group, and I'd heard so much about him at the time. He used to speak and, train on leadership and all of that. I said, I like this man. I want to look up to him in my leadership development. How am I going to get to him? So I joined the Heart Group. Actually, I was serving in the Heart Group at that time. I was serving in the mine. He was in Canada. When he comes around, he goes to so many places to speak and to train. So one of the times he came to the Heart Group, the mine, the Heart Group has a library. So I met him then. I was like, Doc, I've been chasing you for a while now. Truthfully, I'd sent him, I'm sure he doesn't even remember that. I sent him a message on Facebook the first time. And I said, I want him to be my mentor.
Ooh.
And it was unread. Maybe I should put it that way. Or if he read it and there was no response, whatever it was, that was what happened. Now, fast forward, I think that's 2 years down the line. I was disappointed, like, yeah, this is me reaching out to somebody I think can mentor me. And maybe you have that experience wherever you are right now. You're trying to reach out to people, they've not responded to you. Be patient. It's okay. Don't demonize them just because they've not responded to you. So, yeah, he came to the library, and then I met him. Then I told him the story. He says, oh, really? He never saw that, because he had lots of messages always coming into his Facebook. Then I told him, okay, I wanted him to mentor me. Now, this is what I want to do. I'd finished my national service at that time, so I was working with the Heart Group. I said, anytime he has any speaking engagement and he had to travel, and then he had written books, I would be able to join him and sell books for him and, just join him because I want to learn from him. And that's how I started. The point is that one of the ways to develop that social currency is to commit to things that the people are interested in. He's having a project, he needs volunteers. Be a volunteer. Be there, go there and say, how can I help? Because I want to learn from you. In those moments, you have the opportunity to show what you are good at doing, right? And then they notice your skill, and then they can make recommendations for you and all of that. So let's take a biblical example. A biblical example is Joseph. I always tell people, right? So Joseph, when he was in prison unjustly, unfairly, we can go into all of that. Whilst he was in prison, he wasn't just dormant and adamant and saying that, or grieved and pained, and quelling to himself. The Bible says he was serving to the extent that they made him more or less like the prison prefect, And then the next thing we get to know, the Bible says that he was looking out for the prisoners. And then one day he saw the countenance of some of them had fallen. How are you helping people within it could be a colleague, just being there to listen to them. They're going through things. You could offer counsel to them. Even some of your bosses are going through things. And by the grace of God, God has given you wisdom to be able to provide some counsel, or maybe provide a resource. You know somebody who is a therapist who you can link them up to go and speak to. And by that help alone, they realize that you've helped them so much and they owe you something. And they owe you a favor. You are now in their network, right? So the Bible says Joseph was looking out for these people. And then he saw, and he asked them, what is wrong with you? They told him his dream, their dreams, and then he interpreted it. And when he was done, he says, now, well, as you go, because he said that they were all going to leave the prison anyway, when you go, make a recommendation for me before the king. Tell him I was unjustly imprisoned, so that they could take me out of here. All of a sudden, he created a social currency by social capital, established a relationship with these people who are serving in the presence of the king. So then he has leverage now in the king's palace as well, right? The Bible rightly said that, they've forgotten about him. One was killed and one was still serving, but he had forgotten about him. But the time came. The time came.
Will surely come.
And when the time came, the king had a dream. And then nobody could interpret the dream. And this one person that Joseph had a relationship with at the prison, remember that there was somebody called who? Joseph. Watch these two things that happened there. He talked about his competence, which is the performance currency. He can interpret the dream. But now Joseph had what we call the social currency, because this person was now making recommendation for him. Right? So one of the ways to, again, apart from serving the purposes of the people who you believe in, apart from giving counsel and being there to support, to listen, and to try to see, another way is to actively serve your gift, your talent, to help people in your community, and by that they always know that they owe you, and because you are valuable to them, and everybody wants to journey along with valuable people in their life, right? So that's very important.
Wow. Eva, I want you to come in before we wrap up. What are your thoughts?
I absolutely love that you used, lots of these Bible characters that we're very aware of. But for a long time, we've always had the stories, told us in a different angle. And I love that you bring this into the corporate world, and it clearly depicts the kind of world we live in, and in the corporate setup. My question here is, one of the things I've noticed in the workplace is there are, I wouldn't say just two kinds of people, because there are more than two kinds of people, but then you have the very feisty ones who are just naturally feisty, and you have the ones that are a little more laid back. Of course, someone being laid back doesn't necessarily mean that they're a doormat or a walkover, but I do notice that there are a kind of people who generally always aspire for the best, want to get the biggest position, and sometimes in doing so trample upon others to get there.
They do.
For an HR practitioner, and this has always been one of my concerns, I've worked in a senior management position, and I found myself in a position where I've had to make those decisions. However, not in an HR capacity, but for somebody who is, head of HR, what measures do you put in place for the kind of people that might not be what you call the feisty ones? You have, said a lot of things about how to acquire these skills, what to do to protect yourself in the workplace, how to recognize politics, how to navigate it, and so on. But there will still be people who are not able to navigate it. What do you have in place to protect them from these bullies? And are there any repercussions for people who you notice are intentionally trying to get their way through negative politics?
All right, thank you. Yeah, so every business should always think about protecting everybody within the business. It's not just some people, right? And especially the people sometimes refer to as the weaklings. How do we protect them? The first way, like I mentioned, if they were joining the business, you would want to give them a buddy that is responsible, that is a high performer, who understands the political terrain of the space, to help them navigate that. The second thing, again, which I talked about, would be to let them understand the policy. So we put policies in place to guard against some of this Machiavellian behavior by others. Right. So that policy fits into example, performance policies. How are people measured based on performance? All right. So then we know that you are deserving of the promotion for which we are promoting you. It's not just because you're using political tactics to gain visibility and to win the hearts of people within the business. So yes, we have our performance metrics, the KPIs, and we have the performance appraisals. So HR people need to make sure that they enforce and they evaluate, they monitor performances of people to be able to see how they are doing very well. The fourth will be to publicly educate the employee, right? Tell them about these things. Example, we've had over the period conversations on sexual harassment in the workplace and how it should be handled. Like you rightly said, sometimes it's the fear of people owning up or opening up because they feel that they may be victimized, but if the policies are clear on how these things can be handled, and then more importantly, HR persons should be trustworthy, because the people should be able to come to talk to you knowing very well that you're not going to put them under the bus. Right? You are the trusted person they can talk to. That's why HR, you don't need to be all over the place talking about everything, being in everybody's business, and people come to talk to you, the next moment they are out of your office and they hear the conversation on the corridors. Like, how would they even feel that a place is safe for them, culturally healthy for them to be in that place? So yes, the fourth one would have to be to do the education, and the fifth one to be able to have trustworthy HR professionals, right, that they can talk to. The fifth will be to, sometimes people are more comfortable talking to external people, so you want to have what we call the employee adjustment programs. So it could be a therapist, it could be a legal people that are private, but the company has made them available. So if you have any issues within the business you want to talk to them about, and then they can help you, clinical psychologists, all these professionals who handle some of these things best, you can be on standby for people to talk to. So that is also one of the ways by which companies can make sure they are helping people navigate this space very well. Apart from they themselves being intentional in nurturing the skills of social awareness, political awareness. And the whole idea is that even if you don't want to play, you need to know what is going on to see how you can protect yourself and how you can protect your space and still thrive, which is very important. So your network with people around, being socially aware, having integrity and intelligence. So that's what I was going to say. Daniel, apart from the fact that he could negotiate, he could network with the people, all of that, he was excellent in his work. Such that the Bible says that, so the people realized they couldn't use anything against him anymore. Like, his performance was stellar performance, high performer. You can't find anything against the guy. The guy's doing his job, right? So they realized they couldn't use that against him until they had to go for his belief, which is actually the extreme. And that one, so that's again one of the things you need to know. What are your negotiables and what are your non-negotiables? I tell people, the Bible characters, when I study them, I want to study them deeply. So there are non-negotiables, and Daniel didn't worry himself about them. Example, Daniel's name was changed. Daniel didn't fight for his name not being changed. Like, okay, you want to change my name? Fine. I'm fine with it. That's not something to fight over. Ask yourself, as Christians, what are the things we've made as non-negotiables, which are actually negotiable, that we don't need to worry about? Look at Joseph, the same thing. His name was changed. He didn't worry about that. It's not a question of whether that was ethical or that was unethical. You've changed my name. Yes, I have my God I serve in my heart, and that's all that matters at that particular time. In actual fact, when you read the story of Joseph again, and I tell people most of the time, Joseph was a leader, was a supervisor over magicians, because all the people in Babylon were unbelievers, and they were all magicians. But he was a prophet of God. He was serving God. Question is, how did he work with them? How was he even supervising their work? Without they, trying to sabotage him one way or the other. And they did. In fact, there was a time the king had a dream, and none of the magicians could interpret the dream. And the law of the country suggested that all of those people were going to be put to death Because and Daniel stood up to the king and says, no, you don't have to kill them. And that is how he used his leverage. You know, he said, you don't have to kill them. I will go before my God and come. He came with a solution. So as you are in the workplace, use your influence, use your network to also protect your colleagues, right? Solve problems for them. And more importantly, remember that favor is something that you can court. Actually, Proverbs again says that a man of understanding courts favor. You need to have an understanding. And the understanding, when I look into it, they talked about judgment. So you're talking about discretion. You're talking about discernment. Because you need to be discerning to know what to do at a particular time. What is right to do, when and how. Who should be involved, who not to be involved. Some people say, me, I say it anyhow. And when it matters, I'll say it. I'll tell it to your face. Really? You can't sabotage yourself like that. You know, you need to learn a bit of diplomacy, wisdom, how to address things, when to address it, when to speak about it, who to speak to, who not to speak to. All of these things are important for us to be able to thrive in the workplace.
Wow. I must tease that this song that we heard by Some Song, it doesn't seem like it's minimum effort. It sounds like it's a lot of it's a lot of work. Not work, not striving, not labor, but it sounds like you really have to depend on the Spirit of God for wisdom, and definitely do what you have to do. There's so many areas. Maybe you're listening to us today and you are thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not good at social capital, or my emotional intelligence needs to be worked on, or my performance in the last 2 years has been terrible. Don't be overwhelmed. I know there's a lot we've talked about today, but start with, what can you start working on? Which aspect can you start working on? As Adam said, one of the places that I work in is the HUD group. I volunteer with the HUD group. I lead in the HUD group. And one of the things we say in the HUD group is, leaders are readers.
Yes.
That is one place you can get a lot of information from. So you're listening to us and you're saying, how did Mr. Kweku EDEM DAMANKA, how did he have so much information? It's because he reads a lot. And now reading is not just using your eyes. You can actually be reading by listening. There are audiobooks, there are podcasts, there are whatever you're spending your money on. What are you doing on Twitter? It's that same Twitter that you'll find some of these wise people he has referred to. What are you doing on LinkedIn? What are you doing on Facebook? You know, and the interesting thing about it is that now AI observes your preferences. So if you're always reading stories about the latest scandal, guess what? That's what's always going to pop up on your Facebook wall. But if you show that, oh, I'm looking for scholarship, I'm looking for leadership, I'm looking about corporate savvy and politics, it will keep popping up, and you realize you have as much material as you need. So make a wise decision and think beyond SO and the food of that moment, and think about your birthright and your future. These are very, very lovely conversations. We want to be wrapping up soon, but I think we can take a quick song break. Can we? Awesome. And when we come back, we'll be sharing our final thoughts. You are listening to, you are watching, you are participating, you are part of the Life and Grace show on Kristocentric station. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Kristocentric station.
Such a lovely song by Nasi, Asida. And of course, if you've known me for years, you know that I'm working on my tree. So I had to get a translation. But basically, song says that if I'd known this is how far you'd have brought me, I wouldn't have grumbled, murmured, and complained. And sometimes that's how we feel in the workplace. But let's know that God is definitely sovereign. He's sovereign over everything. With some wisdom, some direction, some humility to get help, we can definitely get back. This is the Life and Grace Show on Kristocentric Station. Thank you for sticking with us. There's a Bible verse I'm going to quickly share, a few verses, and then after that, we'll take Mr. Damanka's closing remarks. So Luke chapter 16 verse 1 to 9 says, the story of the crooked manager. Jesus said to his disciples, there was once a rich man who had a manager. He got reports that the manager had been taking advantage of his position by running up huge personal expenses. So he called him and he said, what's this I hear about you? You are fired. I want a complete audit of your books. The manager said to himself, what am I going to do? I've lost my job as manager. I'm not strong enough for a laboring job, and I'm too proud to beg. I've got a plan. Here's what I'll do. Then when I'm turned out into the street, people will take me into their homes. So, wisdom. Then he went at it. One after another, he called in the people who were in debt to his master. He said to the first, how much do you owe my master? He replied, 100 jugs of olive oil. The manager said, here, take your bill. Sit down here. Quick now. Write 50. To the next he said, you, what do you owe? He answered, 100 sacks of wheat. He said, take your bill. Write 80. Now here's a surprise. The master praised the crooked manager. And why? Because he knew how to look after himself. Streetwise people are smarter in this regard than law-abiding citizens. The shrewd person tends to do that better than the naive believer. They are on constant alert, looking for angles, surviving by their wits. I want you to be smart in the same way, but for what is right, using every adversity to stimulate you to create survival, to concentrate your attention on the bare essentials, so you'll live, really live, and not complacently just get by on good behavior. Wow. Message. This is an amazing translation of this one.
It is.
Adam, what are your thoughts on this?
This scripture, the first time I read it, 2 questions. Why would such a man be praised? That was the first. And the second, why would Jesus said we should learn from him? Among all the people we can learn from the scriptures, why is Jesus particular about this person? So, two things. Jesus is not recommending the what's it say again? It's no, he's not endorsing the behavior
Yeah.
of stealing, which was done by the manager.
Corruption.
The corruption.
We know that word in Ghana
Yes.
very well. Corruption.
Corruption.
Yeah.
Jesus was not endorsing the corruption. But Jesus was talking about something here which had to do with the skill and ability to create a network for himself. So Jesus was saying that we should learn how to create network of people, of relationships, because this is what the guy was doing. And even he says, even the manager praised him. Like, how can this guy be so shrewd to think about creating network for himself? The conversation we'll be having all this while has to do with the fact that you want to make sure you have the right favor with the right people, but don't use the negative way like this guy is doing. Now, when you come to what Jesus said, Jesus says that we should learn to create network, but for what? The right thing. Jesus was very definite with what he said. He said we should use it for doing the right thing. I've heard people who say that they want to change the world, they are change agents and all of that. But the approach by which they go about it, some of the times they create a lot of enemies for themselves. By the time they are even trying to have any influence in the workplace, they are even already out of the workplace because they created a lot of enemies for themselves. Somebody has trapped him, somebody has blackmailed him, and then they just can't survive that space. So Jesus is saying here, and I like the way Jesus ended it. He said, let's not just live for good behavior. That's how he ended it. And for me, this is what summed up all of it for me. Jesus on one level is telling you, make sure you create a network, make sure you have integrity, make sure you are socially aware, but have good behavior, but not just focus on the good behavior. Use the good behavior to be able to make impact, to do the bare essential. And for me, this sums it up for us. And who is the better person to hear it from than Jesus himself? You know. So at the end of the day, keep God at the center. Develop a deeper relationship with God, because he is the one who leads you to the right people that you need to associate with for the network that you need. He's the one who gives you the discernment to be able to understand the spaces in which you are and understand what to do, the skill set you need to be able to navigate those spaces. And ultimately, he wants you to live for righteousness, which we'll call in corporate space integrity. So make sure you live by integrity as well. Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. In all you're getting,
Get understanding.
get understanding, get knowledge, and be steeped in wisdom. So we're talking about navigating corporate politics. Eva, I want you to say your last words. I think today we did the extended version of the Life and Grace show. I love it. Go ahead.
Like we did last week, Karis.
Ooh.
If you will get that, so. So I just want to add by saying that one of the ways we can also play an impact and role in other people's lives is not to fuel this negative politics. You can neutralize it, and by doing so, you should not engage by gossiping. Do not argue. Do not take sides. There's a verse here in Ephesians 4:29. It says, "Do not share office gossip. Put yourself in the other person's place, and you'll understand how it feels to be talked bad about." If we lived in a world where we didn't have negative politics, wouldn't it be great? I believe that fueling it just increases and intensifies it. If there's anything we can do as believers, yes, we navigate it, we try to stay on top of it, to be the best we can, be a Daniel, be an Esther, and so forth, but do not fuel it, neutralize it.
Love it, love it. I was just quickly looking for a favorite verse of mine as well. And this is one that my husband always shares when it comes to do with dealing with office politics. One of the things that I think we briefly talked about was also people who come into the space and they are trying to usurp people who have been there or their supervisors because they want that favor. and because they want to have that power and the ability to manipulate. This verse from Luke chapter 6 verse 40 says, "The student is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like their teacher." This one talks about humility. Yes, you've gotten into a place and you seem to be the new kid on the block. You have the freshest ideas, you have great skills, and then you now begin to behave as if the person who at that point is supposed to be in a supervisory role. You're treating them as if they are dumb or there's nothing good that they're bringing to the table. Use wisdom, because this verse also tells us that you will gain knowledge, you will grow, but don't forget that one day you'll also be in that position.
Exactly.
So you have to be gentle. I think we talked about kindness and caring, not just to those who are younger than you, and not only to the top people who can give you great influence, but to middle level as well, your colleagues. Be wise in the way you treat them. It's been fun. It's been real. So we are just about to sign up. We want to say a huge thank you to EDEM, Mr. Kweku EDEM Damanka, and who has been with us on this hour talking about navigating corporate politics. Thank you for taking a little bit of time away from your queen and royalty, your children, to spend some
Hello to
time with
them.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wherever they are listening,
Awesome.
you know I love you.
Okay, guys, so we'll catch you same time next week. It's been a blast. My name is Karis and Eva. And
And I'm Eva Rugaba.
awesome. God bless you. Catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Well, it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. Whatever's in store for me, it's gonna be nice. It's crazy right now, Lord, but that's when you shine. I can't start shouting, knowing it's gonna be nice. Well, you never promised me that my days would be problem-free, but you did promise to always take care of me. Right now it seems that my troubles will never end. I know you promised to be my closest friend, and it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. Whatever you got, it's gonna be Lord. It's gonna be nice. It's crazy. It's crazy right now, Lord, but that's when you shine. I can't start shouting. It's gonna be nice. Well, I gotta remind myself daily who lives inside of me. And when I stay close to you, close to me, you're gonna be no more crying about my situation. I know what I gotta do. I gotta pray, gotta trust, gotta believe. Depend on you. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. Whatever you got for me, it's gonna be nice. It seems crazy right now. It's crazy right now. But I know you shine in the midst of it. Lord, I can't start shouting. I'm gonna shout right now. It's gonna be nice.
You're listening to Kristocentric Station.
Dispatch, this is Delta 15. I pulled over a possible 10851, white female, driving a light blue SUV. Appears very agitated. Please be advised I'm approaching the vehicle now.
Why did you stop me? I didn't do anything. It was that moron up there who pulled in front of me. He didn't even use his turn signal.
Ma'am, please keep your hands in plain sight and hand me your license. Slowly.
Fine. Here.
Mrs. Smith, and your vehicle registration?
What for? I didn't do anything wrong.
Your registration, please.
Oh, hang on. Let me find it. Here.
Oh, I see you own this vehicle.
Of course I own this car. Why did you pull me over?
You have a Jesus is Lord and a WWJD bumper sticker on your car. When I saw you yelling obscenities and such at that other driver, I naturally assumed the car was stolen. My mistake. Have a nice day.
Do people see Jesus in you? Another message from Lifeline Productions, located on the web at lifelinepro.com.
for 24/7 soul edifying content, this is Kristocentric Station. Playing at Kristocentric.com. Kristocentric Station, the Kingdom Promoter.
Don't you wanna be a part of the kingdom? Don't you wanna be a part of the kingdom? Oh, don't you wanna be a part of the kingdom? Come on everybody.
The Kingdom Promoter, Kristocentric Station.
How do you do? One of the most basic human desires is the need for love. Science has shown that the lack of love can scar a child for life. But can verbal and emotional abuse be overcome? We're about to meet a man whose very name reminded him he was unloved, then unwanted. That is, until his heart and mind and life were unshackled.
Get out, Huck. You don't eat in my kitchen, stupid.
I'm hungry, Uncle Jim.
You done had your grits. Your table's in the mudroom, so scram.
I'm hungry.
You just want my bacon. Back to the mudroom. Why'd my idiot sister send y'all to live here anyways?
No, my mama don't want me.
You got that right. You stupid as stone. Just like she said when she dumped you here. Can't behave, neither. Y'all make more trouble than a peck of hornets. Hard enough with my own kids.
What's hard, Daddy?
Hush, I'm talking to Huck. Tomorrow, I'm ditching you on my brother. Make him take you, you little moron. Your mom don't want you.